just finishing off some reds we had leftover red. Anyway, I've actually got a nice bottle of white wine chilling, because although having read Fred's book about wine and you know all this pretension about wine and everything, if you want to drink red with whatever you want to drink it with, you drink it with. If you want to drink white, whatever you want to drink it with, drink it whatever you like. Because we're going to make a salad, a nice sort of fresh summery salad. And most people would say, of course, you need white wine with that, or sparkling wine. But if you like red wine with it, you can have it. But anyway, this was left over, so I've got to finish this first. So we're going to make a fennel, courgette and pickled red onion salad with feta cheese. But before we can do anything, we've got to start preparing our pickled onion. So these aren't your pickled onions out of a jar. We're doing these from scratch. Now, ideally, you'd do this stage the night before. Couldn't do that. Wasn't able to. So we're going to do that now, and then we'll get preparing the other ingredients once we've done that. So let's crack on. Pickled red onion time. To start with, I've got 50 grams of sugar. I've got caster sugar. You could use granulated sugar. It don't matter. It's all getting dissolved up. Okay. And into that, I'm going to add 100 mils of cider vinegar, and then 75 mils of water. You can only get 50 in that. And we're just going to heat this up. Excuse me. I'm just going to gently heat this up, and while we're doing that, we're going to prepare our onion. So for that, you're going to want one smallish red onion. Okay, you could have half of onion if you like, but we're going to go, by the time I've trimmed this, there ain't going to be an awful lot there, as it were. Now we want some really thin slices. Now if you reckon you can do that by hand, you're welcome to do it by hand, but I'm going to use a mandolin, because I haven't had that much to drink yet, because actually those first few sips you just see me had, the first drink tonight, because this mandolin's a bit of a bastard. You'll have your fingers off. So just be careful. Like I said, by the time I trimmed all that, there weren't a lot of onion left. So let me just get some room on here and get me mandolin, and we'll let that get up to the boil. Okay, so here's my mandolin, and it's just set with the blade to cut nice fine slices. And there we go. There is our onion. On that. And we're now just going to put those onion slices, not as fine as I thought they'd be, to be honest. I might leave them bits out because they're a bit chunkier. And what we now want to do is essentially bring this to the boil. Okay. And then once it's got to the boil, turn the heat off. And then we just let it sit in there. Just try and make sure that onion's all submerged. We're just going to let it sit in there and cool gradually for about 40 minutes. Essentially, it doesn't really matter, because we'll add in this in when we sort of build the salad. So this is going to be our pickled onion. So we now need to make a dressing, and then we need to assemble the main salad ingredients. And like I've always said, fennel, courgettes, nice going in there, sugar snap peas, pomegranate seeds, getting very poosh, some mint and some dill. Oh, and you're also going to want some olive oil, some honey, some balsamic vinegar. Now, strangely, the recipe actually says white balsamic. I don't know if I've ever come across white balsamic. I haven't got any white balsamic. I've only got that one. Some lemon juice, a clove or two of garlic, and some nice whole grain mustard. Now, it also wants some sumac. And for the life of me, I cannot find myself. I know I've got sumac because I've used it in other recipes, but I can't find it. Never mind. I'll console myself in another week. Right, so I've removed that saucepan. That's why I can't see it anymore. And that's now just sitting at the back there, and we're just letting that cool down. So now we're going to prepare our dressing. Now, again, you can prepare the dressings earlier. In fact, the longer it sits, the more the flavours imbue through the dressing. So, using my nice new OXO, I've mentioned this before, but you might not have seen that episode yet. My nice new OXO sort of microplane, if you like. I'm just going to, actually, let's see if I can do it over that way so I don't make too much mess. I'm just going to finely grate, and again, this is a bit of a bugger. This is quite sharp, so I've got to make sure I don't take my fingers off. I'm just going to finely grate a couple of cloves of garlic into a bowl, about that. And this is going to have the balsamic in it, the honey, garlic, the whole grain mustard, and ultimately it will have the oil in it. But to begin with, we just add these ingredients. Now, I'm doing the dressing, but I said to you we're talking about feta. Well, as you all know, feta is a Greek cheese. Now, you can get feta made outside of Greece. However, if you want to call it feta, it's got to be made in Greece. And feta is actually a cheese made from both sheep and goat milk, although the goat milk should be restricted about 30% of the mixture. And the milk has to come from certain geographical areas of Greece. Otherwise, even then you can't call it feta. Feta is considered the national cheese of Greece. Although, like I said, it is made in other parts of the world. So that's my garlic grated into there. So, what are we doing next? Right, I think we'll put the balsamic in because that's runnier. So I want 2 tablespoons of the balsamic. 1, 2, and then we're going to want our honey, and our honey we want, actually I need teaspoons for that. I'll better get a teaspoon sorted. Now, by the way, if you had your sumac, the sumac goes in the dressing, and you want anything from 1/4 to 1/2 of that. Like I said, I can't find that. So we're going to put 2 teaspoons of honey in there, and then we're going to put 1 teaspoon. I'll put small for a teaspoon, isn't it? 1 teaspoon of our grain mustard. Now, we're not adding oil at this stage, okay? But what we're just going to do is just whisk this together, and then we'll be adding our oil in a bit. So I'm just going to put that there for a minute. So I'll tell you about feta. It's got to be made in Greece. It's got to be made from certain areas, otherwise you can't cook feta. And it's basically a pickled curd cheese that is salty and tangy. And it's like that because a part of the process of maturation, which is done in brine, hence it gets very, very salty. And so depending on how long you let it mature depends on the texture of it. whether it's quite creamy or whether it's sort of quite more sort of dryish and crumbly. It shouldn't really be a dry cheese. If you're going to store it any more than a week, you should actually store it in like some brine or something like that to stop it drying out. But anyway, that's a different story. Oh, them onions are starting to make my eyes stink. Oh. So, by law, this feta, which I've got behind me, has to be matured for at least 3 months in brine. Otherwise, it's not feta. But as a result, it does mean that when you look at the nutritional content of feta, it is very high in salt, very high in sodium, 400 milligrams of sodium per 100 calories, if you like, if you want to measure it that way. So, part of preparing our salad, we need our fennel bulbs. Now, this trouble is most times in England, because like you can see how they trim the tops off, you don't get the fronds, but we're going to keep the fronds for sort of like decoration purposes. Make them look nice. So I'm just trimming them off as best I can, and we'll just put them to one side. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim off the bottoms and the sort of outer layers. To be honest, that one's not too bad, but I'm still going to take that bit off. And again, we're going to use our mandolin. Chucked it in the sink and I forgot that I was going to use it again. And we're now just going to finely slice that fennel. It says talking off camera very rudely. We're now just going to slice that fennel. Yes, we don't need that because I can hold the stalks. You can, again, if you haven't got a mandolin or you're just feeling whatever, you can do it with a knife. It's up to you. Ooh, look, another bit of frond. This bit's not actually going to go too well, but never mind. So, get back here, you dirty bastard! Don't get all over my bloody oven. So I was saying to you about the fennel. The feta. Right, we really have finished with our mandolin this time. Here's my bowl. I'm just going to put my fennel into, and we want to add about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I'm going to add the juice of 1 lemon. I'm trying to make sure the pips don't go in there because they're trying very hard to. So this feta is obviously quite high in fat because of obviously how it's made. It's about 25% fat. However, compared to a lot of cheeses, hang on, this pip there trying to escape, that's actually quite, well, not low, but it's a low fat cheese for being a cheese. Very good for vitamin B12, calcium, phosphorus. It's also actually full of probiotic. But I'll get it right in a minute. Prebiotics, probiotics, I don't know, but whatever. Gut-friendly bacteria. Although, having said that, there is a risk of it containing listeria. So therefore, if you're pregnant or whatever, you shouldn't, like any sort of soft cheeses, you should avoid them. Okay. Let's pick there, you little git. Get out. And there's another little pick in there, you little git. So, just going to lightly toss that through in the lemon juice. Just going to get cleaned up, and we'll put the next bit in there. So we've used up the leftovers. So now we're on a nice chilled Chardonnay. Could do with doing a little bit more chilled, but never mind. Right, so now I've got 3 smallish courgettes, and I'm just going to cut the stalks off. Don't you dare go on the floor, you little shite. And you might have noticed, by the way, I've just swapped my bowls because I suddenly realised I actually wanted to do this in a separate bowl, and the other ingredients go in the bigger bowl, and then it's all going to get mixed in the bigger bowl anyway. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is using a peeler. I'm now just going to create ribbons of courgette. Now, I recently did actually. I said recently. I can't remember the order of things going out now. I suspect you'll probably see. I don't know. I might mix and match it. Perhaps this will go out first. I recently did a baked courgette thing. Well, no, actually, I think I put that out. Getting a bit keen on courgettes a minute. So we're creating these ribbons, if you like, of courgette. A bit wasteful, isn't it? And I'm going to do that with all 3 courgettes, and we're just going to sling that. That makes a sloppy noise, doesn't it? Into that bowl. So I'm going to avoid the seeds in the middle, right? Because a lot of people don't like seeds, do they? Fatty bastards, don't they? So I was going to tell you a bit more about feta, but I think what I'll do is I'm going to just finish off doing these courgettes first. So here I've got about 100 grams of sugar snap peas, and what we're going to do with those is we're now, can't really do this on the mandolin, so I'm going to have to do this with a knife. We're now just going to very thinly slice these. He says brushing the top of his thumb then. And they're going to get tossed in with the fennel. So, I'm telling you about feta. I mean, really, this is a feta salad, but I just thought feta's quite, I like feta. In fact, I've just opened the packets. You're going to want about, how much was it? 250 grams of feta. In England the packs come as 150, so there's a little bit spare. Oh dear, I might have tried. I love feta. I love most cheeses, but I must admit my 2 top favourite cheeses are halloumi. Although I can never seem to cook, you know, like you see these, you know, they say, you know, like you can fry up your halloumi. Never quite seems to go right, but never mind, it still tastes bloody great. So halloumi, followed by feta, and I sort of put them in a different category to other cheeses. I mean, I'm a big fan of blue cheeses, but I wouldn't really class them as the same sort of cheese. But anyway, well, they ain't, are they? But what I mean is, you know, I'd sort of almost class them as something completely different. So your feta, I've said to you, it's obviously high in fat, but not as high in fat as some other cheeses. And obviously, because it's dairy, it's saturated fat. A small cube of feta, so about 35 grams worth, is like 100 calories, which, in all honesty, means absolutely nothing to me. The wife goes to Fat Club. I mustn't call it Fat Club. I get upset if you call it Fat Club. You're not called out to use the F word, even though they all do apparently. Fat Club, I mean non-Fat Club, Fat Club, F Club, whatever. Slimming World. So, feta is actually an ancient cheese. Cheese, Gourmet. I mean, actually, talking of cheeses, what I like and don't like. Wallace Gromit, and he goes on about his cheeses. Wensleydale. Actually, I don't mind Wensleydale. But some, I'm not a big fan of cheddar. I'm whipping on here about cheese, aren't I? Just passing time while I'm doing this. Emmental, Gouda or Gouda, Comte, like Comte. Oh, I found a really nice recipe from a Frenchman I follow. It uses Comte cheese in like a pastry, and I was going to make that the other week, but then, in fact, I was in France on Bastille Day, and I thought that's the ideal time to make it, but unfortunately, didn't think I'd transport it. But I might still make it anyway. Anyway, enough of me cheeses. Roquefort like that. Danish blue. Stilton. Actually, I think I prefer Gruyere. Camembert's nice, especially when you have it hot. And brie, you know, warm that up and that's really good. I'm now going to take some mint leaves. Just going to tear them up into there. I don't know, dozen or so leaves, I don't care. Okay, we're just going to tear them into it. Did you know the UK eats, I mean, to be honest, I don't know how this compares to Greece, but the UK eats 12,000. Actually, this is doing this ain't a Jamie recipe, but this is a Jamie thing. You know, when people say, you know, chop your herbs, and you go, well, don't chop it. Except you don't talk like that. Don't know if I can do it, Jamie, in terms of his voice. He'll say tear it. More aesthetically pleasing and gets the flavours out without ruining it. So I'm tearing up the leaves. But I was just saying, the UK eats about, and now this is dill, and I've got about 10 sprigs of dill, and again, I'm not putting the coarse stalks in there, I'm pulling off the sort of other bits, if you like. I'm just tossing that in there. The UK eats about 12,000 tonnes of feta each year. Fucking lot of feta. Not surprised, I like it. One of my favourite cheese. Don't know if I mentioned that. Actually, and don't you dare try and get on the floor. One of the reasons actually it's quite appealing is that its saltiness means you can have it with wine. It's simple, it's not, it's a Chardonnay. That also goes well with beer. Zinfandel, Pinot Noir, Sauvignon Blanc, which are all wine together, I know. Yeah, so, you know, it partners wines quite well. Right, I'm just going to finish doing that. And then, actually, apart from our pomegranate seeds, our pickled onion, which is still cooling down over there. Like I say, ideally you perhaps wanted to get that cooling a bit longer, you know, like overnight perhaps. Don't necessarily have to refrigerate it, well, you could do if you wanted to. So I'm wondering if perhaps I've got enough dill here. But anyway, I'm ranting on again. And my wine's running out. And we're going to be adding feta in a minute. Might try some feta. Did I mention feta's one of my favourite cheeses? I've just tossed that through, and you might have noticed that the potency of this salad is so much, the bowl's grown bigger. And that's simply because I realised by the time I want to start tossing everything else in there, I'm going to be in a bloody room, so I'm making the bowl bigger. Now, we're now going to take our fennel. We don't want that lemon juice in there. So we're just going to pick out our fennel and leave behind our lemon juice. Okay. And we're just going to toss that through. This is where I'm doing my Jamie bit. We're going to be putting that oily dressing. Well, no, it's not oily yet, but it will be. We're going to be putting that oily dressing in there. I'm not sure I'm going to be using my hands for that. I'm not that much of a Jamie. So, I told you, feta is an ancient cheese. Homer mentions, well, he doesn't really mention feta as such in the Odyssey, but Polyphemus, the Cyclops, he mentions how he made cheese from sheep's milk, which he ripened on racks in his cave, and that was probably very much a forerunner of feta. But even in the 8th century we have documented evidence that cheese was made from sheep and or goat's milk. When I say 8th century I mean BC as well, so quite a long time ago. And it was a widely consumed cheese. Well, don't you dare try and escape, you little bastard. Widely eaten cheese throughout ancient Greece, and it was actually in the Byzantine or Byzantine period that feta actually first got mentioned. Okay, it was produced by the Cretans, people of Crete, Thalassi, Thessalonica. Oh, I can't say that one, too big. Anyway, so that's that bit done. Now we've still got to add our pickled onion, which is still cooling down there. And again, we won't be adding all that liquid in there because, of course, we've got our dressing there. And we've got to add our feta, and we've got to add our pomegranate seeds. So perhaps we'll finish off our dressing. Our next thing is we want some nice extra virgin olive oil, and we're going to add 4 tablespoons of that. 1 to our dressing, that is. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Right. Lid on that, we'll stir it, and then we're just going to whisk all that together. So I've just told you about how, you know, feta is like quite an ancient cheese. Quite a thick, that dressing, isn't it? I'm not going to add that yet until we're almost ready to serve it. So I've told you, you know, about how from the 8th century and everything. In the 15th century, there was an Italian who visited, sort of Greece as it were, and he described how feta was not only marketed, you know, i.e., you know, come and buy my feta, it's fucking ace cheese, but how he described this cheese that was stored and matured in brine, which of course, like we said, that's what feta should be. So there's our sauce. Now we're going to give it a little whisk before we're ready to go. So to be honest, we're now almost ready. Now I've got here 10 tablespoons of pomegranate seeds, that is, not 10 tablespoons of pomegranate. That'd be difficult, wouldn't it? They fall off for a start. And we've also got our feta. Now I said to you, our feta, 150 grams. No, sorry, 250 grams, not 300 grams. Oh dear, what a pity. I might have to try it. Nice. Salty but not overly salty. Creamy but with some texture to it. Definitely one of my top 2 cheeses. Don't know if I mentioned that yet. So we're getting near the end now. So I'm going to take my salad bowl, and here's my pickled red onion. I hope it's fucking cold, don't put my fingers in it. And we're just going to pluck out that onion, and we're leaving behind the liquid. Okay, and we're just going to put that all into there. I mean, you could use strainer if you like. Who cares? That last bit, let's taste it. Surprisingly, I was a bit worried because, like I said, they said to you, you know, or I said to you rather than they said to you, that, you know, you could prepare that the night before. It is very, 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 very slightly warm. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to chill it. But I was a bit worried that that limited time that it's had, it wouldn't necessarily be particularly pickled. But you're getting the onion. I wouldn't say it's overpowering. But you are getting that sourness, but the sugar. Oh, I'm getting very sort of whatever here, aren't I? The sugar sort of takes the edge off the acidity here. But whatever. So we're just tossing that through, again doing our Jamie, getting our hands in there. I ain't doing that when I've got the greasy dressing in there. I'm using a bloody spoon or spoon. So there's that in there. I need to wash my hands because I need to pick the glass up, and then it's basically feta and pomegranate. And then when we plate it, them fronds we kept behind, we're going to put them on top as a bit of decoration, a bit of garnish. Now it comes time to add our feta, and what we're going to do is we could cut it into cubes, but instead we're just going to lightly crumble it. So where does the word feta come from? Well, it actually comes from an Italian word which essentially translates as slice. Don't know why. Whether it's because it was sort of sliced up after it'd been in the brine, I don't know. And actually, the word feta, which is from the Latin for slice, is derived from another Latin word, offer, which is a morsel or piece. Again, not quite sure how this applies to feta. It wasn't until the 17th century it was actually became part of the Greek language. But there you go. Oh dear me, look. That bit doesn't want to go in the big bowl. I think I might have to eat it. Anyway, so we're now just going to toss this through. Okay. So anyway, I was saying to you about the word feta, and it comes from the Italian and what it means and everything. It's believed, I said to you, you know, where does it come from? Slice, but it's possibly because to get it into the barrels after they'd made the cheese, I would say this is a very therapeutic thing. It gets all under your fingernails. Not that I've got many fingernails, most of them are broken off. But it may derive from the fact that you had to slice it up to get it to fit into the barrels. Here's my pomegranate seeds, and in they're going to go. And my dressing, which we're just going to pour on. Let's get all that out of the bowl. Like I say, I'm not doing my Jamie and get my hands in there. Dirty bastard that he is. I'm going to use a couple of spoons, and all we're going to do now is attempt. These are a little bit springy, these ones. I'm just going to attempt to get that all coated through. So we've still got our fronds of fennel. But we'll use them when we plate it. So what I've made here is enough really for 4 people. Alright, so I'm I'm just going to make sure that's all tossed through, and then we'll plate up and try it. Oh dear, look, that's the last of the wine. Last of that bottle anyway. So finally, we'll take some of those fennel fronds to our final decoration on our plate, like, and then time to taste it. So remember, we've got fennel, courgette, pickled red onion, feta cheese, some pomegranate seeds. So it's not strictly vegan, because obviously the cheese. Oh, and sugar snap peas, don't we? It's crunchy. The pickled onions are quite strong. You've got the creaminess from the feta. There's a little bit of heat in there almost. And I can't believe that's the garlic. Perhaps it is. I did have 3 cloves of garlic. But for a salad, and to be honest, I thought, here we are in the summer in England with a mega heat wave. Let's make something nice and summery. And today it's pissing it down big time. Because although Europe is currently baking under extreme temperatures, unheard of temperatures and everything else, today and tomorrow in the UK we've got rain.